I didn't have many friends in Spain. When my parents called on Saturday afternoons, I told them I'd been out late with Nuria and Jose Maria, which was, in its own way, true. Nuria was the town librarian, and she'd often let me stay inside long after they locked the doors. This might have been because I was so good at hiding, so quiet in my little black flats, or this might have been because she saw I meant no harm and she pitied me. Jose Maria owned the internet cafe down the block, and he'd come to recognize me not by my yoga clothes or my Midwestern accent, but by the purple bulge of my backpack. Aquí viene la americanada, he said, elongating the end of the word as if to suggest that here I was, the biggest of the big, the most American of them all. I wanted to correct him to say, the kind of American you think I am would never leave the country. The kind of American you think I am wouldn't move thousands of miles away from home alone and spend her afternoons doing grammar quizzes online. The kind of American you think I am wouldn't be here, sitting opposite you in this dank, dusty room, listening to the clip of the air conditioner overhead, thinking of all the things I could say back once I've got the right words. The right words, where were they? Sometimes at night I'd spend an hour hunting for them in my apartment, opening cabinets, swinging open the windows, lifting the dust ruffle on the sofa in the dining room, rearranging framed paintings on the walls. They were always out of reach, like madrugada. I'd learned the word almost immediately, memorized the shape of the vowels, the drudgery of that D before the elegance of the G, but I could not for the life of me remember what it meant. Words like this would arise in my dreams, and I'd spend my days looking for them. Dictionaries wouldn't do. The hard and fast definitions weren't what I craved. What I needed, what I wanted, was to learn words the way babies did, to soak them in like sunlight, to have them dangled before my face and repeated as many times as necessary. What I needed was to learn things without realizing I was learning them, to sponge it all up. I needed every word to have its own matching image, its own sonic match, its own lingering taste in the back of my mouth. Instead, I kept messing up. I ordered a cunt instead of a cone at the ice cream shop. When trying to translate a joke, I accidentally told a fellow teacher to fuck the graves of his ancestors. I mistranslated a key part of the third grade science lesson and told a whole slew of 8-year-olds that solar power is only available on the sun. Logic, humor, cultural cues, these were the signposts I was missing. I had one roommate, Dory, but she taught night school and went back to Granada every weekend. Our apartment was usually empty. The space was wasted. We had 3 bedrooms and an airy little balcony 5 floors above the shared courtyard, where, if it was windy, you could spot Senora Gomez's braziers floating cup up in the pool. The evenings were my own, a freedom I'd later crave, after I left Spain and worked late nights at my stepdad's restaurant just to make ends meet. And yet in Malaga, the hours crawled by. I felt like the space between words, that gap between paragraphs, open space, a slate washed clean. The feeling, though, wasn't clean. It was white, the absence of meaning. When my parents called me, I never had anything to report. Days passed, the sun rose and set. I ate cold cereal and colder gazpacho, and still the air was full of nothing. One night, when Dory was away in Granada, I opened all the blinds and turned on all the lights, stripped off all my clothes, and stood up against the sliding glass door to the balcony. I waited there until the goose flesh rose on my arms, until the hair on my legs stood out in stubbly bumps, willing something to happen, if only someone would notice. It was absurd. In my heart, I knew all I had to do was go outside, where a single bulb illuminated our balcony to the courtyard below. Maybe the best way to be invisible was to get really, truly naked, to blend in with the shadows, to make myself small and soundless. I stood there shivering for a half hour. I recognized the bulky form of Senora Gomez leaning over her laundry on the ground floor. Some kids were kicking a ball across the lawn. The night was growing ever darker, bruising the sky like it, too, was recovering from a blow. I prayed someone would look up. No one ever did. It wasn't until months later, biking home late at night from the internet cafe, that I remembered the word, madrugada, that elegance, that sonority, that perfect white space between letters. I let the word absorb on my clothes. Madrugada, that witching hour between midnight and early morning, that quiet time when darkness reigns, when image gives way to sound, when everything in the world fades into its opposite. Was there an equivalent in English? I considered the stars. Did each one of them have a name, a word? Would there ever be time to name them all? When I got home, I noticed that Dory had left our balcony light on. I couldn't make out a figure. The light beamed. It lit up the insects as they flew by. And then she pulled the blinds open, exposing our little flat to the world below. I could see her in the window, sweeping a broom along the tile. Maybe in La Madrugada, we can see even the invisible.